This is the North Africa Journal, and thank you for downloading this podcast. For more podcast information and user rules, please visit north-africa.com/podcast.
And with more on the freedoms won, but also the challenges ahead, we are joined by Alessandro Bruno. He is the deputy editor of the North Africa Journal. So, Alessandro, you know, as we were just showing our viewers, jubilation in the streets of South Sudan, but certainly many people are bracing for still continued strife and struggle. Why? What are the concerns still?
Good afternoon. Well, there are many concerns, and some of them were seen in late May and early June when the North Sudanese, that is, the regular Sudan state, attacked areas of South Kordofan and the IBA region. These are two states that border, are right at the border between now North and South Sudan, which have ethnic populations that are much closer to the South Sudanese. So, and they want to unite with South Sudan or become independent themselves. So we've already seen that the North Sudanese are more than willing to attack these areas at the minimum, sign of independence. In fact, there have been more people killed in this area, between South Sudan and North Sudan in the past year than in the previous 5 years, since the peace was announced in 2005, the truce. More than 2,000 people have been killed already in related conflicts.
Much of that, let's talk about what's fueling that. Much of that is, there's a religious divide between North and South, but also the most hotly contested areas are the oil-rich regions.
Yes.
And we know there is this resolution signed between North and South so that essentially profits would go to the North because they're providing that pipeline to export oil from the oil-rich southern regions. But will this agreement hold? That's a very real question, isn't it?
That's one of the main issues. And in fact, the regions that I mentioned were attacked. ABA in particular. ABA is the richest single oil region, and the differences are not just religious. The South is mostly Christian and animist, and the North is mostly Muslim. But it's also a struggle between pastoral communities, nomadic communities.
Yeah.
And settled agricultural communities. It's a very similar problem to what we have in Darfur, in fact. And erosion and drought are pushing for these kind of conflicts as well, apart from oil. Now, going back to the pipeline problem, Kenya is one of the countries that's going to benefit the most from the South Sudanese independence, because their companies are already, have already bought land and are already preparing to build a new pipeline that will go through Uganda and Kenya, avoiding North Sudan altogether. So this agreement to split the oil profits is temporary at best. We don't, that could create more regional tensions.
Well, and when you mention regional tensions, we know there's still ongoing conflict in Somalia, in Congo as well.
Yes.
So there could be a spillover effect, right?
Yeah, not only there's a spillover, but proxy wars are what I fear. Governments interested in their own particular issue, for example, Egypt is very interested in maintaining the flow of the Nile, the way it has been for the past 50 years, under an agreement with the British when Sudan became independent. That's now in question as well. So Egypt, for example, or some other states could use there's a renegade group called the Lord's Resistance Army, based out of Uganda and actually they've even set up bases in South Sudan, which can easily go and disrupt population, creating the image of a state that cannot hold itself. In other words, a lot of countries are interested in presenting South Sudan as a failed state right from the start.
Right. I know that you say that the potential for South Sudan is similar to, the kind of wealth that Kuwait sees from oil, which is huge. I want to ask you, do you feel that there will be enough Western and allied support in this region to prevent what you and I just discussed?
There is, yes. There's a very interesting thing here with the oil as well. A lot of the companies extracting the oil from Sudan right now, which is in the south, are Chinese and Indian, and then there's a Malaysian one. Right now, many Western companies have stayed away from Sudan because of the social responsibility implications. They don't want to be seen as operating in a country especially that has the Darfur issue. In the West, we know Sudan mostly for the Darfur problem. Now that South Sudan is completely independent, Western companies can go in great numbers, along with Western aid and UN aid, because this country is going to be a major attractor of NGOs and aid agencies, right, development of all kinds, because it really is completely underdeveloped.
Okay.
It's starting out as one of the poorest countries in the world.
Yeah, no, certainly a lot of support that is needed for sure.
Yeah.
Alessandro Bruno joining us with the North Africa Journal. Always great to have you with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
This was the North Africa Journal podcast. Thank you for listening.